So we're gonna do some muffins. I really love blueberry muffins. I love muffins of all types. I have recipes for banana muffins, banana chocolate chip, lemon, orange. I'm thinking of trying a mint chocolate chip. I'm a little serious about this muffin thing. Carrot cake, right. So my first thing that I do that I need to teach you, if you are not much of a baker, if you are, you can ignore me. I'm not a know-it-all. One thing that you need to always do is when you mix anything when you're baking, you do the dry stuff and the wet stuff, and then you combine them after. Okay, so I always do my dry stuff first. One thing you have to know about me is I really don't measure. So forgive me, because I'm not great about measuring. I just don't like it. It doesn't feel natural. So I'm going to do our dry batch first. I always do the wet batch in the smaller, or the dry batch in the smaller bowl, because it's easier to pour the dry stuff into the wet stuff. And I'll show you that. Right now I'm putting about, so I don't really measure very well. I usually actually just pour straight into the bag, but for your sakes I'll try and be a little more civilized about it. I'm going to do about 2 cups, maybe 2.5. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is almond flour. It is blanched almond flour, which is where they get all the almond skins off. This is Honeyville brand. It is the best in my opinion that I have found, but I've heard of other really good brands. I'm not a real big brand seeker. If I find something I love, then I stick with it. I also really love Bob's Red Mill tapioca flour. Tapioca flour is relatively inexpensive, and a little bit goes a long way. So generally, for every 1 cup of almond flour, you're going to want to add about 1/4 cup. So I'm adding about 1/2 cup. See, I don't even measure. It's kind of terrible, isn't it? But it works for me. I just do what feels right. If it doesn't look right, and you kind of just have to figure out what you think feels right and what looks right. So I'm going to mix this a little bit. The almond flour, it can be really chunky. If you really want to, you can certainly put it through a sifter. I am just too lazy, and it doesn't need to be. So I don't even go there with the sifter. Something else to wash, right? Something else for our kids to steal from me when I'm trying to make stuff. So we get that mixed. I think I am going to add a little more of the tapioca. You do want to see if maybe it can get a little bit of a fluffy look. And I don't really think it actually gets too fluffy. I think the tapioca just makes it look white, which makes it look fluffier. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Tapioca and almond, I have found with all my experimenting, make such a great mixture to make things, the bready, you know, when you eat paleo or primal or whatever it is, when you eat gluten-free, we really miss that bread, don't we? Right? I mean, and especially for like little kids with their celiac or their gluten sensitivity. It's so sad. I always feel bad for the ones that, you know, they know that their friends have these amazing cakes and stuff, but yet they don't get the same thing, and they know that other texture is so much yummier. But this one's, I would call it dead on, and that's our little friend Emma there. She's quite the helper for me. So I'm going to do just a little bit of salt. Again, we're sticking with the dry. This is about, I'll let you do it next time, I'm sorry. Okay. That was about 1/2 teaspoon, maybe more of 1/4, somewhere in there. Not a ton of salt. When you're baking, I always like my baked goods to have a little bit of salty. Some people don't. Some people don't like that. But if you were to talk to like a professional baker, they really, really, really suggest using a lot of, not a lot of salt, but they do always suggest adding salt to something really salty. And then we're going to do some baking soda. Hello. That would be the children playing a really funny joke on their auntie. That's awesome. Okay. So baking soda. I don't like spiders. They just put a spider near my muffin mix. They are going to pay for it later. Maybe no muffins. So I'm doing baking soda. I did just about, half a teaspoon almost. Not quite, somewhere between 1/4 and half. And the baking soda is what helps make these fluffy, but there's also going to be something else in the wet mix. So that's our dry mix. I'm going to move on to the wet mix. The wet mix, we need to do some eggs. I have some lovely eggs from my gorgeous chickens, my backyard chickens. This is our Emma. She's going to do our egg cracking. My kids love to crack eggs. They love to help me in general too. And I'm not really afraid of messes. They just happen anyways. Go ahead. Do it on the flat surface, remember. When you crack an egg on a flat surface, it actually makes this perfect little circle, and then the circle has the line for the crack, and it's perfect. So stop cracking your eggs on the edge of the bowl and do it on the surface. Well, hey, no eggshells went in with that. Oh, it did. That's okay. We can get that. No worries. Thanks, babe. Go wash your hands.
Okay.
So we whisk. Then I add, about 1/4 cup of honey. Maybe not even quite that much. So with the blueberry muffins, I really don't like them that sweet. I like the batter to be a little more on the salty side. And it really, go ahead and mix. And it really brings out the blueberry. Maybe just the tanginess or something. I don't know. Maybe somebody else could say it better than me. So along with that honey, this is the magic trick for the fluffiness. Along with the tapioca flour, almond flour mixture, I add a little bit of white vinegar. I don't know, sounds terrible, doesn't it? I add about a tablespoon. And that will react with the baking soda, and it makes it nice and fluffy and bubbly. For our last ingredient, vanilla. Who doesn't love vanilla? Do love that. Okay, so teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever you like. I did about a teaspoon. And then we mix our wet into our dry. And this is what I mean by it's easier to mix your dry into your wet, because you don't have to scrape it. It just goes right in without the wet having to be scraped all over the place. And then another trick when you're baking, and these are not tips just for paleo bakers, this is for all bakers. I mean, there's plenty of more experienced bakers than me. But you never want to mix too much. You never want to overmix. And do you see how it's all foamy? It's nice and foamy from that vinegar and baking soda, so it's going to get that fluffy. It's going to be lovely. Yeah, will you taste it? They say don't let your children or anyone eat raw batter. I say haha. And then we just need the blueberries. And I'm going to use frozen blueberries. You can use regular blueberries.
Can I put them in, Mama?
I put them in just because I don't want to do too much quite yet.
Okay.
So, with frozen blueberries, you do have to be careful with the moisture content. If your blueberries are freezer burned, these ones aren't. These ones look great. But if yours are, and it happens, freezer burned, then you just have to, if you do want to take the time, you can dry them off with a paper towel. It is a little bit time consuming, but it's worth it because of the moisture content. The moisture content can really be thrown off by that extra freezer burn moisture.
I love frozen blueberries anyway.
I know you do. So we just fold these in. We don't want to mix, we just want to lift and fold, okay? We don't want to mix too much. Do you see how there's the blueberry, the coloring? Well, that kind of messes up the really pretty blueberry versus the white batter mix. So we don't want to do too much, so that is about all the mixing I'm going to do as far as the folding. And then we're just going to put them in our tin. In my muffin tin, I like to do the mini muffins. You are welcome to do whatever size muffins you prefer. I use the sprayable, the aerosol coconut oil in my muffin tin. If you want to use muffin cups, those are really cute, whatever you want to do. So this batch will make about 24 of these minis, or it will make 12 regulars. They go into the oven, 350 degrees. A lot of paleo stuff is cooked at a really lower temperature with the baking. I baked these at 325 also. It just took longer, but they turned out great. So whatever you prefer, obviously 350 is faster. Did you like that? They didn't even fall out. Have you ever put cookies into the oven and tilted it and all of a sudden all your cookies rolled into the back of the oven? A few times. My husband actually stopped me from making cookies, or at least stopped me from putting them in the oven because they would roll into the back of the oven and we'd have a huge mess. That's me for you. Nowhere near perfect. So they bake for 10, 12 minutes, 8 minutes if you like them a little bit squishier. I'm not one to worry about the egg being cooked through just because I know my chickens, they're going to be okay. But if you are worried, you can cook them 12 minutes, I'd say would be max for the minis. For the bigger ones, 12 to 15 minutes, a little bit longer. It also depends if you used the frozen blueberries or not. If you used frozen, then you definitely want to go a little bit longer, I'd say around 18 minutes, just to get that extra moisture out of there. So they've been in about 12 minutes. I don't use much of a timer. It's kind of a crime. My very old-fashioned, wonderful mother, who taught me to bake and cook, really has a hard time with me not using a timer. But I just kind of go with what feels right, what smells right. And they have that beautiful golden, they're a little sloppy because we like little hands helping us in the kitchen, but we love the golden around, okay? And most of these should just pop right out because of that coconut oil. Let's see if we can get at least one to come out for us so we can look at it. Yeah, that's very easy. It's coming out beautifully. I will just end up tipping this whole thing upside down to get everything out, but for the sake of everyone to enjoy and drool so you can make your own. And there they are. Paleo Blueberry Muffins. You actually don't even have to tell people that they're paleo. I went to a breakfast about a week ago and there's a teenager there and she has a really hard time. She's got a lot of allergies, specifically, hang on a minute, she's dying for one. She specifically has a hard time with corn and wheat and certain sugars, and so I gave her one of these blueberry muffins. I didn't even tell her that it was paleo. I just told her she could eat it and she loved it. And then I have a little girl in my neighborhood with celiac and she's 4 years old, and she and her mom both eat gluten-free but mostly paleo too. And they absolutely devoured these. And the best thing about them is they just go right into the freezer. If I didn't have 6 kids with me today, I would be putting these in the freezer, but otherwise they're going to be going into everyone's mouths today. Enjoy.